Hello, everyone, and welcome to Northrop's third virtual happy hour with GALLIM. My name is Kristen Brogdon, and I am Northrop's Director of Programming. We're excited this fall at Northrop to be hosting an online residency with GALLIM. It starts with these virtual happy hours that we've been doing monthly, and it will culminate in an online performance of a new dance film based on GALLIM's work Boat that we will be premiering in November. I'm going to give you an intro to a couple of Zoom features for those of you who are just getting used to Zoom. There is a chat function, which on laptops will usually be at the bottom center of your screen, and on other devices is usually at the top right, kind of in your Zoom menu bar. We encourage you to use that chat feature to introduce yourselves to each other, talk amongst yourselves, and it's kind of a virtual lobby and a chance to interact with each other during the conversation. And if you have questions today for Andrea and Michelle, you can enter those in the Q&A function. So that's usually right next to the chat, either in the bottom middle of your screen on a laptop or top right on another mobile device. Our next virtual happy hour is November 18th, and that will be with Ben Stamper. He's kind of a late new addition to the schedule, and we're very happy to have him. He's the director and co-creator of the Boat film that we will be premiering the following day. And I also encourage you to go to northrop.umn.edu. You can register for that virtual happy hour and also get your tickets to the online performance on November 19th. They're making something entirely new with this dance film and including Twin Cities musicians. So we hope that you'll join us that night too. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Andrea Miller, a groundbreaking artist who brings unbounded imagination, physical virtuosity, and a sense of deep humanity to her work. Her creations penetrate the elusive meanings of existence with unbridled nerve and a rare poetic instinct. Miller's acclaimed works and commissions have been performed worldwide by GALLIM, as well as other leading dance companies in theaters, museums, gallery spaces, films, fashion shows, and branded experiential marketing events. Recent live dance commissions include many companies our Northrop audiences will recognize, including New York City Ballet, Works in Process at the Guggenheim, Ballet Hispanico, Martha Graham Dance Company, AIM by Kyle Abraham, Ailey 2, Rambert 2, and many others. She works in fashion, film, and has experience in many university settings before this one. So please join me in a very warm Northrop welcome for Andrea. Hello, Andrea. So happy that you're with us again tonight.
Hello, Kristen.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Such a warm welcome. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here again with our Happy Hour series. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you, continuing our path along quarantine and a pandemic, hoping to bring these moments where we can get together and share in community and in ideas. I'm going to get on with my introduction, which I wish I could somehow access, but the computer won't let me. Okay, here we go. So happy hour, bottoms up. I hope everybody has their drinks. We'll have a little intro to the drink in a little bit. We got a great cocktail designed and given to us by Michelle Jack Rose. So I hope you're getting ready to get somewhere comfortable and have something delicious in your hands, and we'll get started. I started this discussion series last year as a way selfishly to spend time with people that I love, and it turned out to be a great way for audiences to get to know those people as well. In a sort of intimate and fun way. And during this time of discussion, we dig into the past, present, and future of dance, as well as how it might be experienced and growing beyond sort of the conventional shape that we know most closely of the field, and how people are seeing creativity and vision within it in their practice. I'm very proud to introduce to you today a absolutely brilliant choreographer, jaw-dropping dancer, and visionary artistic director. of Dorrance Dance, Michelle Dorrance. She's deeply accomplished. Her work has been commissioned and performed across the globe, including The Late Show of Stephen Colbert. Recent commissions include the Trinity Irish Dance Company, Martha Graham Dance Company, the American Ballet Theater. She was a 2016 USA Doris Duke Fellow, recipient of the 2015 MacArthur Genius Grant, recipient of Princess Grace Award, the Bessie Award, just to name a few. She graduated from NYU's Gallatin School of Individualized Study, where she created a major that dealt with concepts of American race and its relationship in democracy and in culture. It's important to note that like so many there's many artists that have a great list of accolades, but few have actively transformed their field in such and participated so generously and actively in the experience of their craft than Michelle. She is one of those few, and everything she does is from a complete commitment to honoring and sharing and uplifting the community of tap dance and its form at large. And whether she's in front of a group of non-dance audiences or like deep in her community, she's so generous and excellent at everything that she does. It's such a privilege to know her and to see her work. And I can't remember actually where or when it is that we met, but I'm so glad that we did. So please join me in welcoming Michelle Dorrance.
Andrea, that was way too unreal of an introduction. Way too sweet to me. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. This is for everyone else, just so you know, it's like a great excuse to get to talk to Andrea, because on top of being a mother and an artist and running a company and etc., you know, she is also a support system for so many people. So I am grateful for this chance to just get to talk to you.
I feel the same, and actually, that's kind of where Happy Hour started. I saw this show of what's his name, Jerry Seinfeld, where he comedians in cars drinking coffee. I don't know if you know it, but he basically just hung out with like his friends having coffee, and it was so fun to watch. And I was like, I need to do that because I want to spend time with Michelle drinking something together. And then, you know, kind of Happy Hour came to be. And you were one of the first to actually join us in the real live Happy Hour we did at GALLIM.
Was I really one of the first?
Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. So here we are. We have your cocktail.
Y'all, I have to confess, this is not my cocktail. My homeboy Lachlan, who is literally a friend of mine since freshman year in high school. So
thank you to him.
Thank you to Lachlan, aka
thank you, Lachlan,
who's in New Orleans, and you know, he's really cooking up a Halloween cocktail. So if you all want to know about that, we'll like send it out, because he's like this is some basic fall cocktail. I was like, okay, so we don't get like the high end one. And I'm actually drinking local apple cider.
Well, look at you. Here I am with our cider as well. So,
but I feel terrible because I'm not even a part of the cocktail. I'm just part of the cider.
Well, I'm also part of the cider. So what I thought to do is to find a ridiculous cup. So here is the gauntlet of Michelle Dorrance. Cheers to you and to everybody who's joining us. I hope that we can have a nice hour together that already starts deliciously.
I was looking at where folks are all over the
Yes. Cool. We have a chat function, and I really do recommend everybody to jump in throughout. Of course, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but it's really fun to feel you and hear you. And
yeah, it's so cool. Hi guys.
Yay,
so
Charlie and Debbie.
Words, I look at the words to say hi, but that's not where they are. We're all like right here or something.
So I wanted to just let everybody know some of the things that you're currently working on, which is kind of out of this world. A lot of things when I started looking at it, this is in the last year or so that of things that are happening for you. You're currently the educational artist in residence at the 92nd Street Y That's amazing. That's exciting.
That's cool.
Very, yeah, burgeoning sort of life happening there with their new director. You're offering dance company classes on Wednesdays. This class is to raise funds, from what I understand.
Yeah, actually it was a great I think shift. We were going to offer it just for free in general during the time of the pandemic, and with like the Black Lives Matter movement, the murder of George Floyd, but also Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Pop, so many folks, and things really coming to a head in relationship to our larger national but international, just a larger awakening. And I think people having time to look at themselves in the mirror and look at our systems more intensely. Instead of just offering the classes for free, we now have a suggested donation to an organization that is unique to the rotating teacher for each week that resonates with them in a really specific way. So and actually, I just took that class today because it was at 3:00. And Claudia killed us with some really great technical exercises. This is the thing. I really set this class up a little bit selfishly because I love my dancers, and I want to take class. Like, this is something that doesn't live as much inside of the practice of, like, I don't know what to call our generation, but just like from your 30s into 40s into, being an elder in the tap dance community, it's rarer that you take class the way a ballet dancer takes class every single day. I want to take class every single day. I want to take class from my different dancers who have who have different backgrounds. Of course, we've come together, but anyway, so you don't need to hear all that, but that's, yeah, company class was at first kind of a selfish pursuit of me wanting a class.
So actually that like leads to a question that I have, and maybe we'll come back to some of the other like amazing things you're currently up to. But how does Zoom work with sound and tap? And I don't, yeah, because it's
it was not made for tap dance. Actually, the company class we do on YouTube Live, it was in order also for folks to feel, I don't know, I think there's something that at first I was just like, gosh, online digital platform classes, not being able to hear anything, no actual live musical interaction, because that's what we are as musicians. So it's essentially like everyone playing music together on mute because we're dancing our music, right? But then what I acknowledged in a handful of dancers that aren't tap dancers, like, reminded me of, that were our friends and peers and close, folks, is that whether it's Zoom or whether it's a platform where you can't see everybody, folks are taking class that were maybe intimidated or nervous, or there's an opportunity to take class at home or with the camera off, or just in a streaming platform where it doesn't necessarily have the Zoom logistics, that more people are more likely to take in this other way, like folks that might have been nervous too. So there is this like really beautiful thing about it. It is totally outrageous for tap dance. There's no syncing. There's no, you have to ask dancers to unmute individually, or get everyone to unmute. And then, even though it won't be in time, to repeat a rhythmic phrase over and over again, to try technique when there's a question. It's as if you were taking any other dance class, except that you're responsible for your sound. So that's the best way to check in with a student. So it's actually a new level of trusting individual students to really speak up when they don't understand it. You can't just say, wait, that's a heel drop. You can't always, and not to mention, it's easier for some people to look like this into the camera, in order to, and the camera isn't on their feet, so the nuances of our technique are so refined and so small often. It's hard. It's wild. Yeah. It's sad. I really want to be in a room with people making music in class. It's a devastating thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think about that, and when you consider it, like I'm able to teach class, and then honestly I've thrown counting out the window. Like there's no moment in which we even refer to the music, because I know they're hearing something completely different, and they're hearing my voice and then just coming in and out. But this is so integral. Do you think that like some of those benefits of being able to, if you're shy and if you're hesitant, but this gives you like a window, do you think that this kind of classwork might even stick around, even though it's not ideal for tap after this time? Or do you think it's just going to be like, well, that was that, and now we're done?
No, I mean, I think that a lot of digital platforms that there were pre-existing platforms, of course, but there are a number of, I feel like there are a number of just educational streaming services that are going to not only exist, but become more robust. And I do think that one of the hardest things that I've done as a teacher through this time period is a pre-recorded class.
Okay.
So, and so that people can take at their leisure, and like a given festival or an educational setting can have this up for a certain amount of time. And
That's smart.
yeah, no, and of course you can go back and watch it. You can rewind. If you didn't get something, and so, but as a teacher, you're talking to no one. It's like it's one thing. Actually, one of our elders, Sam Weber, who's a masterful technician, and he's kind of got some dad jokes, like my mentor Gene Medler. Like he's a funny guy, but like he he said, he actually preferred when he taught a company class for us, actually two different times, and he said, I almost prefer YouTube Live, even though I can't see the students, because everyone's chatting actively in the chat to ask questions, and there's this interaction that feels a little more natural. Whereas when I'm on Zoom, I just feel like I'm a comedian who's bombing all the time. You can't hear anything back. So like I loved him saying that. And then we also discussed the pre-recorded class. And if you do one little thing that you don't like in a live setting, you're like, that wasn't quite it. This is what I meant. Or, oh, I did that on the other foot. Or, whatever it is. You can't do that in your pre-recording, or you feel like you can't. You're like, oh, I should refilm. How far should I go back? And then you're like talking to yourself, or you've set your camera up, or if anyone's in the room with you, like, oh, it's the worst. So it just is like, it's a cesspool of self-criticism in your own teaching. And then you're like, why do I think that's funny? Would people have even laughed at that? Like, what, who, I don't know. It's terrible. It's like, oh, so painful. Anyway, so that's another unique, and I don't even mean for any of these to be complaints. It's just like, these are really unique challenges to right now. But I do think, even though the pre-recorded class can be challenging, once you're on a roll, or if there is something that you want to impart and you want people to be able to take their time with it or have access to it, and it also allows for you to reach an international base. I mean, certain classes, because the tap community is close even in its international reaches, right? I had someone in Australia being like, this time was perfect because I could get up and do this class. Or someone in London being like, don't make it too late. Just folks that you've known over the course of time or taught when they were younger. And now it's like, oh my gosh, that student from Australia from 10 years ago. This is amazing. So there's this really beautiful thing, as we all know, anytime when we're spending a lot of like time doing digital outreach, like the breadth of possibility is amazing. And so there is something really positive about that. And there is this a special energy in that moment, right? Or in this moment for that kind of connecting. It's just hard that the thing that really literally like moves our molecules in our body, doesn't happen because we can't always hear each other, right? And that's also one of the things that I think is so powerful about tap dance and dance as music, is like it really transforms you as a physical being in your spirit and your heart. And it's, it's what's really so special about what we do. I feel like we're the lucky ones, us tap dancers.
Yeah, yeah, what I was thinking as you were saying that is this kind of phrase that keeps coming to my mind during this time, which is like the shape of the absence of that thing that we do, that we love, that we're engaged in. And it seems that this distance is almost making some of the aspects of it so much more loud, or so much more clear of how important they are, how they affect, your chemistry. Like you were talking, like even just like the vibration or the frequency in your body isn't getting that change. Um, I wonder how long this will last, but when we come back to really like value how and cherish how these details are so life changing.
I mean, it's something that we can talk about in abstraction because there's not like a scientific way to quantify this, except really to say that, like, yes, definitely your heart rate goes up when you're listening to this, when an accelerando happens in a piece of music. But it is, I know, especially anyone, especially a lot of folks who are probably here, I look at the chat, like I'm looking at human beings, but the reason any of us love, participate in, support our audience members and or presenters and or dancers, or all of the above. The reason that we do what we do is because of, we believe it is transformative. We believe
Right.
live performance is transformative, and it is. And there are these things that are unique to live performance that you cannot capture in any other way. So how do we, So I think that's another thing that I know Andrea and I've also had this like 3-hour conversation just because we got to like talk to each other yesterday. I was like, can we just like chat before we chat? And then like, we just went into so many things. So like, it just reminds me that like, of course we have to navigate this and make dance for film. Of course, we should, refine our focuses and reflect and also support our communities in unique ways that we have time to do now. Like the educational residency is one of them, in relationship to, the fact that I created a company. I'm like, well, if there's a company, then can we do something with the public school system? So now we have the opportunity to do that and to delve into this work that we wouldn't have if we were touring as, constantly. And that's another thing that you and I were talking about is, do we have to think of the same models? Can't we be in spaces where more people have access, and can't we work, with presenting organizations to do that in a time like this, where we can still bring safely somehow have people experience something. So the brainstorming and like really trying to create those new models and thinking entirely outside the box, like that's, I think, another one of our responsibilities right now.
I think you kind of answered this, but just to ask it in like in a different way, like if there's a spectrum between someone who's like, I do live performance, that's what I do, like this is a time for me to maybe like hibernate and like wait for what's coming next when we're all back, or the other side of the spectrum, which is just like, this is what I've been waiting for, like just to create in this like uncertainty and be sort of thrown into the urgency of the situation in a new way. Where would you put yourself like on that sort of spectrum?
I vacillating, and days of extreme excitement and days of total despair, as I imagine. Like I think I mentioned this to Andrea too, and I won't mention this artist's name, but it really resonated strongly with me to hear an elder who's a jazz vocalist in a small intimate conversation just say, there are days I just don't even, I wonder if I'm an artist anymore. And I'm thinking like, this is an inspiration for generations. And this is the way she's feeling. She's like, the thing that I accomplished is riding my bike. I'll ride it for 3 hours someday. And I understand. So some days, as artists, we have to remember that we are committed to doing this thing because we do believe that it helps to change and create positivity or joy, or to hold up the mirror for our culture. Or there's so many reasons that we do what we do, right? But,
Right.
And I mentioned this to Andrea yesterday, like some days I'm just thinking, why didn't I continue to pursue a passion of mine, which is like civil rights law? Why didn't I actually get a law degree? Should I just be a nurse? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is going to help human beings right now? Really. And we have to remember that, like, if we were given, a certain path, and for me, very specifically, our generation, like, of tap dancers, we were gifted these experiences with these elders, and it becomes this amazing charge and responsibility, but also like a gift to be able to be a part of that legacy, and to remind people that this is our culture, and that if it is a history lesson in relationship to the things that we've forgotten, or the things that we don't want to look at, or a lot of ideas inside of we need revolutionary thought right now, and a lot of that is remembering like what is valuable to us as human beings and in our culture, as opposed to what actually has value, which is in sort of underneath a capitalist umbrella. But we shouldn't go too hard left into that conversation. But I don't know. I guess that's what I'm saying in relationship to my response as an artist is, I'm like, this would be a great time for everyone to create, and then the next day it's just like, what can we do? And that it's that is another thing I should say. I spent a huge chunk of time, you know, late May, June, even into July, but just acknowledging my privilege to have the education that I had, that you mentioned at the very beginning, that I got to go to Gallatin, this amazing, brilliant, like an incredible school where you get to create your own major in the multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary classes, inspire you to make these connections between, the depth of systemic oppression, racial injustice, and art forms, and how does history, what I mean? Like, I got to think these things, I got to study these things and pursue these things and apply my understanding of the history of tap dance to, what has happened in America, right? And then I also was, I grew up with, my mother was a professor of dance at Duke University, but they would always be mindful to say a professor of the practice of dance. So she grew up in this real, or not grew up, like, she was a professional ballet dancer. So she had so much to offer as a teacher, but it was always, she went straight out of high school, which was a ballet high school for national ballet. Like, literally it was there, and so she went right into the company. And it was interesting that she experienced so much elitism when she had so much to offer. And so I, even with that, like, with this opportunity to be so well educated, I also kind of had this, like, lean away from the academic world because of its elitist or hierarchical, structure. So I then acknowledged this huge privilege, in that why wasn't I trying to share and delve into, the anti-racism work that everyone should be a part of at this point in our lives? But we are tap dancers, so this is something that we believe in doing anyway. We always want to champion this Black form, like, but no, you're never doing enough. So I also just went deep into a rabbit hole of, I can't believe I've pushed so hard against this, kind of like what could be helpful to other people, this perspective that I have in this particular academic direction. So then I leaned hard into that. Sorry, I'm rambling, Dre.
No, you're not. You're not at all. You're not at all.
But you know what I mean? Like, there's so much that we are as human beings that we bring that into, whether it's subconscious or it's just an experience. You bring it into a room, or you bring it into the thing that you are doing, or it becomes a part of something that is much more deeply rooted in you, right? And I just, this time has offered, kind of forced a lot of, like, hard and heavy reflection, and also just that I am this very supported by these grants tap dancer, when so many of my heroes and my peers, folks that don't know their names, and to me, those are the folks that I look up to, that are, the famous tap dancers. That was such a weird word to use, because I don't really subscribe to that, but you know what I'm saying. So, and then to think, like, through the early part of this period, to be called upon to do certain things, and then to realize, if I don't say no to this opportunity and recommend someone else, I don't know if this person's going to go look for them. So let me make sure to do that. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of thing that you have to take a second to realize, wow, that's something I could have been doing 5 years ago. I don't know. So does that make sense? I'm rambling like a crazy person.
No, actually, I feel like, dance companies, the dance field, and honestly, like, pretty much every field, hopefully, has taken, like, a real, very late, we could say, moment to stop and think and make reflections on where just racism and white supremacy is embedded in the work and culture that we do without even knowing. But it just seems like, first of all, from your studies, but that you mentioned at NYU, but more that it's, like, integrated into your experience of tap in this way, where, like, you've always been in conversation with something that is a little bit, I would say, like, outside of the typical, like, dance company, like, modern dance experience.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, for that matter, I learned a lot more about the modern dance company or contemporary dance company experience just by participating in the concert dance world. Like, what I knew was, my mom took me to shows at ADF growing up. I was so lucky to grow up there. So I had this understanding of this space and this stage where these things happened. And one time in my, 17 years before I left North Carolina for New York City, was there a tap dance program at the American Dance Festival. So that was the thing that I used to write in we were talking about this history, early grant writing, was just like, how is this possible? Like, this was the question that I asked, like, over and over and over again. Like, this is, I was raised in this community, and we know our history because of stories that folks tell, because it's not often written. It's, this is an oral history, yes, and oral tradition for sure. But in that, those aren't the stories that are told. We know the stories of the white movie musical stars, and then maybe the Nicholas brothers, right? But we don't know the stories of these innovators whose names will not be said or remembered unless we continue to tell their stories, or, historians or scholars that are really invested in the community in that way. So it's so interesting that this is literally what we're rooted in as young people, my generation specifically. And then we move into this space, or we, hope to offer this incredible, rich, and also sophisticated, and also heartbreaking, but such a powerful history into spaces that were never created for that. I don't know, that I don't even want to say weren't created for that energy, because that's what I would hope live performance is, right? Or dance is. So yeah, it's unique to, I think, a tap dancer, or various other maybe diasporic dance form practitioners in relationship, to this world that we share. And that's like, I remember getting to know Kyle, like even reaching out to Kyle for the first time. Like you were saying, like, I don't even remember the first time we met either, but like, I just remembered, I knew, knowing who you were, and knowing Kyle, and knowing Camille, like folks that felt close to my generation, that also inspired me as artists in their own right, and also as choreographers, and then creators, or leaders, or artistic directors that believe in investing in a group of people, moving people, right? And it's intimidating. It's like, but then you realize we're all human beings, and we want to care and love and support each other. So, I mean, like, I don't know whether you've mentioned in a happy hour yet, but like that you got a couple of us on a phone call. Oh, I was like, thank goodness. Anyway, say what you're about to say.
No. Well, I was gonna say, so like when you are gonna make a dance company, that's a tap dance company, that's such a, I mean, and you've done it so beautifully, like with such generosity, like just with this spirit of like, this is actually a bigger community. How do you start that endeavor? Like what was sort of
this is what's so crazy about it. I think if I'd known what the journey was going to be, if you'd like described it to me, it would have been like, that sounds terrible. But it wasn't terrible, because that sounds crazy for me to say. But there's some honesty in there. Let me try to describe it like this. I didn't think I was starting a business or an actual company to say I had a company. I just wanted this unique group of people with each, like, and this is tap dancers, period. Getting a group of tap dancers together, you're getting a group of individual stylists and soloists, but also that you have visions for, right? Together to dance together, but also be unique elements inside of a larger work, right? And that's the best part of American culture, I think. Right. But also, gosh, it's so unique to the community to have these brilliant improvisational dancers of multi-generations as well, I think is really important. So, but with that said, like, I was just excited to create for all these individuals that were my friends or my students, or let me ask you to do this, and actually let me push this person in this direction. Let's create this energy and this groove around this person, and then let them sit into this space musically. Or like, oh my gosh, this guy is 6'8" and lanky. And you know what? I know his dance partner, and let me make that duet. And what is that about? That looks like some eccentric dance from the 20s. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, they're from whatever, or just like, let's make this incredible music together. We're rooted in West African music and culture, and let's just sit in this and honor that space. So there's just so much inside of, like, so I just wanted to make things. So I just said, our first performance at Dance Space, I just said, like, introducing Dorrance Dance. And the only reason it's called Dorrance Dance, and I've said this a million times, but like, you guys, please give me a good name for this company. because the program copy was due the next day. I was like, I want to call us something. And I couldn't think of anything good that wasn't cheesy or trite, or like there's so many bad tap dance names out there, y'all. Like you don't even want to know. So we come up with, you know what I mean? But
do we have any? Maybe there's some people here who have ideas
put
for a
it
tap
in the
dance.
chat. I just wanted to be more democratic and more of a collective. And like, granted, I know that I was creating and I had a vision at the beginning, but DANCE, those letters were inside of Dorrance, and I was like, well, that's all right. And I was like, and you know what, we can always just mix it up anyway. So I just didn't realize what I was doing. And then answering the call to, perform in unique spaces, or maybe a tap dance company had never been presented there, or tap dance had never existed on that stage. It doesn't matter about a company or a soloist or anything. So then it was about like, oh, how do we say yes to this, even though there's no money to do it? A lot of credit cards. And or writing grants for, like, when you spend what feels like a thesis for college, and a grant is like $3,000, and then you can like pay a couple people, and then you're like, rest is on the credit card. And then like, what's your dream? What do you want to create? Oh, well, there's this musician who I love that I've been able to work with, and then these two dancers that I'm really inspired by could choreograph and create. And then so the first crazy project that I thought of in collaboration with multiple people was a huge project. If someone had told me like, you should tour simply without all this extra stuff, and I literally, one of the first things that we toured regularly was the Blues Project, and it was like one of the most complex and hardest to book in so many moving parts work. And I also learned from terrible mistakes in navigating even how to tour something. Like it was crazy. It was lunacy. Anyway, so it was crazy. So that's how I started the company. It was crazy. And I trusted my gut when we had to say yes to things that we couldn't afford. And we just made it, it was like, is there room on the credit card for X, Y, or Z? And can the cash that is going to exist for this gig just go to the artist, and everything else can, whatever, it's terrible business practice. I wasn't a good business person about it. It was awful. Anyway, so that's how that started. It was totally crazy, but it also meant what we talked about before, which was me asking why tap dance wasn't a part of this culture, because it is a revolutionary art form, and it's in one of the most cutting edge and most sophisticated forms anyone has ever seen. And why don't people see this, and why don't people know this? And so that's the it was a lot of, and having the conversation over and over and over and over again in different academic settings, in different presenting settings, and also even talking inside the community, like, we're going to step into this space to remind or wake people up to what this is supposed to be, right? But that wasn't the only thing I wanted to do. It just became bigger and bigger, and got, and then we were touring multiple shows, also with not really a real administrative staff or office. It was madness. And the folks that helped in the early days of the company are like saints, and are now like, oh, thank God I don't have to do that anymore, right? I don't know. So, but it was a whirlwind.
What would you say is consistent for you, or still like really like in the pulse of your work since you started now, from then to now? And what would you say has changed? Either in you or in the organization?
What I can say, what stayed consistent is that dancers' eccentricities and individual styles and individual spirits inspire me. And that is like, that's the only reason I want to create. I'm inspired to create. It's not like I need to be a choreographer, and so I will do this with whatever group of people. Like, if there isn't an impetus inside of it, I don't know, Dre, like, if you feel the same way, if you can see it, then oh my gosh, you just have to achieve it. Like, if something, you know what I'm saying? If there is a unique spark in something or someone, and then all of a sudden it can open up into all these ideas in your mind, you're like, okay, we have to do this thing for this person. Or, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Create the creative instinct and impulse when I am in my best place of creativity. It is organic inside of the artists that, whether it's a musician or a dancer, or, yeah, I would just say that's the thing that's stayed, that has maintained. It's fun. It doesn't have to be work when it's that, right?
Absolutely.
But so much has changed. Ugh, don't even make me answer that question. I want to take class. I want to continue to be a better dancer and better artist. There's also so much I just never thought I never thought in a million years that work like that this thing that I made would mean I don't prioritize just dancing. Oh my gosh, I love tap dancing so much. And I don't need to do it. I don't have to be in front of people. I will always want to do it. But that's the thing that's crazy. I never could have imagined that. But now I know. So now I have to force it to happen, which I will continue to do.
That's beautiful. I love that.
What about you?
Okay.
Question?
I told Michelle before we got on this this conversation that, and every time that she was going to ask me a question, that I would just sort of like move like Keanu Reeves in Mission Impossible, like
Matrix.
evading the Matrix. Sorry, the Matrix. Holy moly!
No, I know.
Evading the bullets. Well, I'm curious about how, and I have a Q&A. There is a question from Meryl, which I want to.
We have to answer Meryl's question, but you're not even going to answer a little bit, like what's stayed the same and what's changed.
Oh, you're actually
I'm
asking
back. I have to. I'm just curious for me. I'm sorry, everyone, but I'm sure they're really.
I actually really agree with you that wanting, like being inspired by dancers, being like really wanting to just collaborate with people and be in the room with like that experience of feeling inspiration, or like the feeling that you're discovering something, or that you're like remembering something about why you love dancing, but it's in this new way. Or yeah, I think that that has just always been such a pull that can never dim. I mean, maybe it has dimmed a little bit, but it just always it just warms me up immediately once, you get back into the groove of it. And I would say, I mean, there's a lot I think that has stayed consistent, but that is just something that is just like, it's like a truth in this work, is dancing with people that inspire you.
Yeah.
And having that experience of being in creativity with them. I think what's changed for me, and I wonder if you might feel similarly, is just like putting a shape to putting sort of a shape to like a very elusive thing of like, I just want to make dances, and I want to choreograph with people, and that just being this kind of unorganized thought in some ways, and it's like an impulse, and it's an instinct, but being able to understand it personally, like understand my own creative process and my own timing and my own way of doing things, but also understand how that affects other people, like the administrative team, and how that affects an organization that I'm collaborating with, and just creating shape to it has been the most significant and meaningful change. And then that has added more family and people who are holding it, which I felt like at the beginning I was like, I'm holding this all by myself. Yeah,
and you were.
That's been really good.
It's crazy. And of course there's folks that support, but it is a wild thing. It's nuts. It's crazy.
Yeah. But okay, now back to you. That's the one.
There's Kristen.
Oh, there's Kristen.
I thought that was my cue when you mentioned Meryl's question in the Q&A. So I would love to ask that question for her, because it's a great two-part question, and we'll give kind of a lot of stuff to dig into. And if other folks have questions, there's the Q&A button is there for you. But Meryl is wondering, is this digital moment allowing you to collaborate with artists you might not otherwise be able to, say because of geographic or schedule or other constraints? And then part two is, what kind of new magic is happening because of this new way of creating and performing?
So part one is, are we getting to work with folks that we wouldn't otherwise?
Yep, exactly. Has this opened up opportunities to collaborate with people who either you wouldn't have time or you're not in the same space?
Well, and actually, it's interesting you say that. That possibility of being we're international, someone lives in Tel Aviv, but why not, get something going, right? But for me, I think what's happened is, so like one of my sisters in the dance, but also just I love and adore her, Josette Wiggin. She's born and raised in Los Angeles, and is a part of a legacy. The Kennedys, Paul and Arlene Kennedy, are literally a legacy of tap dance tradition and education, and actually Derick Grant and Dormisha Sumbry Edwards from co-choreographers and co-creators of the Blues Project with me, and on the dance side, Toshi Regan on the music side. The two of them are part of this Kennedy legacy as well. So Josette and her brother Joseph also part of this legacy. Joseph is in Los Angeles. Josette is in Tel Aviv. But so I was thinking, oh, well, we can just start having this conversation. It doesn't matter that we're not anywhere near each other. But then I get so excited that I'm like, how can we bring these dancers, like, how can we actually get together? So I think what it's done more so than for me, I can collaborate with, a friend of mine overseas and in this digital space, and that's that. It's also said, well, why can't we bring, it makes me, I always like want to take this next step that's like, and then let's come together and quarantine and bubble and like go create something together. So I think it's helpful in that way, because, otherwise that seems like a huge, even in normal life, it's like, oh, we're really far away, this isn't going to happen. But it's almost inviting more. It's not about risk. It's inviting more faith that these things that seem out of reach are possible. So that I'm really grateful for that. That's a weird answer to that question, but that's like that's the thing that I think resonates with me most.
I love,
yeah, and I think it answers kind of the second part. Sorry, go ahead, Andrea.
No, I was just saying that I love hearing risk and faith be synonymous in some way. I think that was a really beautiful thing too. I'm going to take away.
Well, thanks for saying it back to me, because I wouldn't have put two and two together. So that I appreciate that. And I guess I also just didn't want people to feel like I meant risk health-wise, right? It's more that it is this crazy thing, yeah.
Sorry, Kristen, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that was also a beautiful answer to that question about like what kind of new magic is happening, right? It just opens up the door to thinking about things in different ways, because there are some things that are possible now that have never been possible before. Like, I don't think, Michelle, we would have thought about bringing you back for these conversations if we were trying to have them in person with Andrea. It would have been like, well, who can we find, who's like based in the Twin Cities to have this conversation with?
Right.
That's also a very valid thing, but we've been able to have people from lots of different geographic places come together and have these really interesting talks, which I think has been fun for folks.
No, and for me as well. I mean, just even like, a former student of mine who has a company in London, like I got to, chat with them for their, weekly, what would have been an in-person thing, and they never would have had, someone else come in for this particular conversation, and that's the same, for all of us in a lot of different directions. And for my dad as well, I'm like, why are you getting on an 8 a.m. Zoom? He's like, it's the European Coaches League or something. I'm like, okay, Dad,
So, and not everyone on this might know that Michelle's father is like one of the highest level soccer coaches in the United States. I mean, probably and far beyond. But he's. Can you actually tell his accolades?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to butcher them, but I am very excited.
I know. I'm proud of my dad, and I'm a Tar Heel. So if there are any Duke fans out there, just don't say anything in the chat. I'm kidding. I can accept it. I mentioned before that my mom taught ballet at Duke University. My dad would always joke that her entire paycheck would go to the UNC Women's Soccer Endowment. So he's the head coach, only head coach ever at the University of North Carolina for women's soccer. But in the 80s into the 90s, he was the United States national team coach. So the very first Women's World Cup. Now we all love the U.S. women's national soccer team, right? I mean, I hope so. But this was part of the dream, was to get women's soccer, particularly in the United States. And it's the world's game, and it's the beautiful game, and it's the world's favorite game, except for here in the United States. But that was what he and, those that really believed in the women's game at the time wanted. So the very first Women's World Cup, I was 11. We went to China and we won. And nobody even knows. I mean, if you go and look at the stats. But so yeah, like I was raised around you know, both my parents being great educators and believing in, you know, women as athletes and artists, and, you know, I don't know. So I'm a fan of both of my parents, and I love what they do and what they've done. And so, yeah, with that said, European coaches at 8 a.m., Zooming, reaching out to, you know, cross continents has been like, that's been a really powerful thing.
I just want to thank Meryl for asking that question. She's a GALLIM board member and one of those people who, when I was saying had created the scaffolding in the shape of what this elusive thing is that I'm doing, she's been one of the people who actually has been a big part of creating that shape. So just want to say extra thank you, Meryl, for that question.
But also, Kristen is a Duke grad.
Yeah, Michelle, I think that I mentioned this to you when you were here. I used to take ballet from your mom.
Wait, that's right. I know this. I know this. That's right.
It was a long time ago.
Yes. But also, you're not such a diehard that you have to like root against Carolina women's soccer, right?
Not women's soccer. If we were talking about basketball, it would be a different story.
Then
but women's soccer, I can be there.
I'm excited for that. Let's watch some games together. Let's have like some ACC
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So our audience is being kind of shy with questions, so I'm going to put one of my own in. I've been thinking a lot about dance history, and we're also right now doing an online residency with Swing Out. And so Caleb Teicher, I first saw him dance with your company, actually, but then he's got this whole creative team around him, and they have been just asking us to go in really deep on some of the history around Lindy Hop, and so they've been providing resources. I'm going to like switch it over to tap and just say, you know, because our audiences don't necessarily have the same kind of access to tap historically as they do to ballet and modern dance. Like, where are some good starting places for people to, you know, sort of dig into that history? You know, do you recommend that people watch movies or read books, or like how do people dive in?
All of it. And actually, because of what I mentioned earlier, just like delving really deeply in a very concentrated time period into trying to share the resources, you know, that we have, but also the larger resources that were out there, and my interest in like doing research into like the breadth of anti-racism work that was happening and things just getting posted everywhere. I just continued to realize like we're having these conversations in relationship to, of course, like a very specific historical and political spectrum, and it doesn't always open up into this artistic, you know, to include this page. So on the anti-racism part of the Dorrance Dance website, there are book recommendations and documentary recommendations. Of course, there's there's a bunch of feature films that we all know and love, right, that have tap dance in them. But these documentaries will help a larger audience understand these unbelievable men and women whose names most of us don't know because they weren't a part of the larger commercial response to. And also this is the appropriation story of Black culture in white America. I mean, tap dance is the origin story of that. From the late 1800s moving into vaudeville and minstrelsy specifically. I mean, the history is harrowing and so important to understand that it is at the core and the root of this culture, but also that, and actually Toshi was someone who explained this to me in kind of layman's terms. She said, you have to understand that music and, you know, entertainment and arts, whether it was dance or, you know, just your act, this was the first pursuit in relationship to Black ownership, individual ownership. And in this, you know, so that it's something really, really important to acknowledge in the roots of the blues and in the roots of tap dance, that these, like, you know, creations, you know, innovations, expression was that intellectual property or that performance or that music or that dance or that vocabulary, that new idea, that this was the beginning of a powerful Black ownership in our culture. It was also constantly stolen and ripped off, and all those words, you know, all the things that, you know, we know to be true in everything from dance, you know, to the music industry, into, you know, larger cultural appropriation from, you know, style. I mean, it's so pervasive. So anyway, with that said, there are a handful of books that deal very specifically with different parts of the African diaspora in America and Black dance and Black culture. And also, sometimes you'll see, tap dance and various other, jazz vernacular dance, like you were mentioning, Lindy Hop, and I love that is a history that you all are working to. I'm so curious about what's happening with that, so I'm excited to hear more. Because those histories are so intertwined, right? And tap dance is such an inspiration for almost every form of vernacular dance up to like breaking, which is the original form of hip hop, right? So it's just like so exciting to know that, like, I don't know, people are open-minded to delve more deeply into this now. Is it too, is it crazy that we've taken this long to do it at a more mindful and committed place? Yeah, but better. I mean, it's better that it's happening than not happening, right? So I think it's really exciting. I don't know. I just sort of lost my train of thought there. Oh, recommendations, books and movies on the website, and that will continue to be updated. I have all these updates that I haven't done yet. Admin is the
So
worst,
go now,
right?
and then go in a few months too. And Andrea put the link in the chat. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks,
And
Jane.
thank you, Michelle, for putting all of those resources together. So that's awesome. I want to get to at least one more question because we had a couple more pop up in the Q&A. So Amy Handelsman says, her first question is, can you speak about the tap battles after a show and how it compares or contrasts to ciphers and rap?
Oh, I mean, it's all part of the same culture, like freestyle culture or battle culture, or and actually that's something that was kind of brought back into tap, like late 20th, early 21st century. I would say early 21st century tap culture is the cutting contest, which is what those tap battles were called. But there were buck and wing contests in the late 1800s, right before we used the word tap dance as a culture. Buck dancing or buck and wing is what tap dance was called. So, and actually, like, there's a very specific judging of those particular battles where the third judge was under the stage, so that they would not be distracted by vocabulary, style, someone just trying to show off. It was purely about someone's rhythmic clarity and, integrity. So, sorry.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I love it. So there were like these, anyway, with that said, you look at, the history of these things happening in, whether it was pubs, like we know the stories of Five Points neighborhood in New York City, and this is often where the impetus for these contests to be held, because it was like, John Diamond, this Irish dancer, against William Henry Lane, who became known as Master Juba, who was like the greatest, who literally was named like the greatest dancer in the world, right? And so, that these battles or exchanges taking place in a casual setting or on a street corner or on a wood floor of a pub, being moved to the stage, and then that idea being a part of the larger culture is absolutely has a relationship to all kinds of, and this exists in everything from tap dancing to vernacular dance to like clown culture to music to just like a one-up spin, the idea that we're in conversation, but let me give you a little something that, is going to push you further, or, and that's also the nature of the game, as far as creating something innovative that is yours, that no one else can do, that is unique to you, that no one else can do, in the early days of vaudeville. And so that lives inside of the cultures that sprung from it. So it 100%. I mean, a rap freestyle battle, I mean, what's unique is the vocabulary, as opposed to being steps, as words, but it's just as interesting to hear folks' different rhythmic approaches. And like, I have my favorite, freestyle. Actually, I have a favorite tap dancer who has really good flow as a freestyle MC or rapper. And his pocket is 90s. It's like very 90s hip hop. And I could listen to him all day, versus someone that's freestyling right now that is like of the younger generation. Like, I'm like, I dig it and you're great, but I like this pocket. I like this music. So yeah, I agree that those things are similar. Sorry, I keep answering way too long. Hi, guys.
No, it's great. I love it. I think our time is up.
Oh yeah, it is.
It went by so fast.
It did. It was so great.
I'm so happy that both of you were here with us tonight. And Yeah, I was mentioning to Michelle that it was just about a year ago that her company was here, and then the next company performing for us, although via film, is GALLIM. So it's kind of a nice full circle thing. And Michelle, I appreciate how you kind of brought everything together for us at the end. It's really nice. Andrea, thank you again for hosting these conversations. It's always so like wonderful to hear what you bring out of the conversation. And I'll just put in one more plug for the next one on November 18th, also at 5 p.m. Central. And make sure you get your tickets for BOAT, which is happening on November 19th. So
cool.
Thank you both so much for joining us. Thank you everybody who participated tonight, who listened, who put their comments in the chat, and who brought us questions. We're really happy that you're here, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you so much, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
And Northrop, and thank you also for being a part of connecting the tap community to the performing arts community in your space, because that is so unique to you specifically. It happens so rarely. So thank you for being that visionary. And
she's a visionary.
It's so important. So thank you. It's an honor to be here. Dre, we should just like to have a weekly talk schedule now that we've done it. You know, I know
I think so too.
You got school and kids and all the things, but
we're sending you lots of love for your and excitement for your upcoming creative time at Capezio, where you're going to be in a bubble there 2 weeks before in Zoom and 2 weeks there, and just that you're going to be in creation is so great. And I'm so excited to see what you continue to give to us and to, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
So thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Northrop homies and supporters. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.